Central Asia, a region often overshadowed by the geopolitical maneuverings of more prominent powers, is now on the brink of a crisis that has the potential to reshape the future of its nations and beyond. This crisis, rooted in the age-old struggle for control over natural resources, specifically water, is quietly brewing between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan. The conflict centers on the shared rivers that flow through these two countries, rivers that are lifelines for their economies, ecosystems, and populations. While the world's attention is frequently drawn to more immediate or visible conflicts, the tension over water in Central Asia could easily escalate into a major international issue, with far-reaching consequences for global stability, food security, and environmental sustainability. To understand the gravity of the situation, it's essential to grasp the fundamental importance of water in Central Asia. The region is one of the most water-stressed in the world, with its rivers primarily fed by glaciers in the mountains of Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. These rivers, including the Syr Darya and Amu Darya, are critical for the irrigation of vast agricultural lands in Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan. Agriculture, particularly cotton farming, is a major component of the economy in these countries, and without a reliable water supply, their agricultural output, and by extension, their food security and economic stability, would be severely compromised. Kyrgyzstan, which controls the headwaters of these rivers, holds significant leverage over its downstream neighbors, particularly Uzbekistan. For decades, the Soviet Union managed water distribution across the region through a complex system of agreements and infrastructure that ensured the equitable sharing of water resources. However, since the dissolution of the Soviet Union, this system has broken down, leading to increasing tensions over water rights and usage. At the heart of the current conflict is Kyrgyzstan's ambitious plans to expand its hydroelectric power infrastructure. As a mountainous country with abundant water resources, Kyrgyzstan sees hydroelectric power as a key to its energy independence and economic development. The construction of new dams and reservoirs, such as the Kambarata hydropower plant on the Naran River, is a critical part of this strategy. However, these projects have significant implications for downstream countries like Uzbekistan, which rely on the flow of these rivers for their agricultural irrigation. Uzbekistan, a country with a rapidly growing population and a heavy reliance on agriculture, views Kyrgyzstan's hydroelectric projects with increasing alarm. The construction of dams upstream threatens to reduce the flow of water into Uzbekistan, particularly during the critical growing season. This could lead to severe water shortages, crop failures, and economic losses in a country where agriculture employs a significant portion of the population and contributes heavily to its GDP. Moreover, reduced water flow could exacerbate environmental problems, such as the desiccation of the Aral Sea, which has already suffered dramatically due to water diversions for irrigation. The potential for conflict is further heightened by the absence of a comprehensive, enforceable regional water sharing agreement. While there have been numerous bilateral agreements and regional discussions on water management, these have often been temporary and subject to breakdowns due to changing political dynamics or economic pressures. The lack of a robust legal framework for water sharing increases the risk of unilateral actions by either country, which could quickly escalate tensions. Moreover, the situation is complicated by the involvement of external powers, such as Russia and China, both of which have significant interests in Central Asia. Russia, which maintains a military presence in the region and has historical ties to the former Soviet republics, could be drawn into the conflict as a mediator or even as a party with vested interests in maintaining regional stability. China, on the other hand, has been increasing its economic footprint in Central Asia through its Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. Beijing's interest in the region's stability is also tied to its concerns over water security, as Central Asia's rivers eventually feed into the Xinjiang region, where water is already a contentious issue due to its scarcity and the region's agricultural needs. If tensions between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan continue to rise, the conflict could have significant repercussions beyond the immediate region. Water scarcity is a growing global issue, and conflicts over water resources are becoming more common as climate change alters precipitation patterns and reduces the availability of fresh water in many parts of the world. Central Asia, with its fragile environment and complex political landscape, could become a flashpoint for broader geopolitical struggles over water, drawing in neighboring countries and potentially leading to international disputes. The environmental impact of the conflict is also a critical concern. The construction of large dams and reservoirs can have devastating effects on local ecosystems, particularly in arid regions like Central Asia. Reduced river flow can lead to the loss of wetlands, the degradation of habitats for fish and other wildlife, and the salinization of soils, which can render agricultural land unusable. The Aral Sea disaster, caused by the diversion of rivers for irrigation, is a stark reminder of the environmental consequences of poor water management in the region. Any further reduction in water flow could accelerate the environmental decline in Central Asia, with long-term consequences for biodiversity and human livelihoods. Socially, the conflict over water resources has the potential to exacerbate existing tensions within and between countries in Central Asia. Water scarcity could lead to internal displacement as farmers and rural communities are forced to move in search of more reliable water sources. This, in turn, could create pressure on urban areas and contribute to social unrest, particularly in countries like Uzbekistan, where the government has historically struggled to maintain stability. Additionally, cross-border disputes over water could inflame ethnic tensions, as many of the region's rivers flow through areas inhabited by multiple ethnic groups with historical grievances. The economic implications of the conflict are equally significant. Agriculture is a major employer and contributor to GDP in Uzbekistan and other Central Asian countries. A reduction in water availability could lead to lower agricultural output, which would have a direct impact on food security and rural incomes. This could, in turn, lead to increased poverty and economic instability, creating a vicious cycle that further exacerbates the region's challenges. Moreover, the loss of agricultural productivity could lead to increased reliance on food imports, making these countries more vulnerable to global market fluctuations and external economic pressures. Given these factors, it is clear that the conflict between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan over water resources is not just a bilateral issue. It is a potential regional crisis with global implications. As climate change continues to alter weather patterns and reduce the availability of fresh water in many parts of the world, conflicts over water resources are likely to become more frequent and more intense. Central Asia, with its complex political landscape, fragile environment, and strategic importance, is a prime candidate for such a conflict. What makes this situation particularly alarming is the lack of international attention it has received so far. While conflicts over water resources in other parts of the world, such as the Middle East and North Africa, have garnered significant media coverage and diplomatic engagement, the brewing crisis in Central Asia has largely flown under the radar. This is partly due to the region's relative isolation and the complexities of its political landscape, which can be difficult for outsiders to navigate. However, as the situation continues to deteriorate, it is likely that the international community will be forced to pay attention, particularly if the conflict begins to affect global food security or involves major powers like Russia and China. In conclusion, the growing tensions between Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan over water resources in Central Asia represent a serious and underreported threat to regional stability and global security. This conflict has the potential to escalate into a major crisis, with significant environmental, social, and economic consequences. As the world faces increasing water scarcity due to climate change, the situation in Central Asia serves as a stark reminder of the importance of sustainable water management and the need for international cooperation to prevent conflicts over this vital resource. It is a story that deserves much closer attention from policymakers, the media, and the global public.